Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an author, presenter at Sky Sports, and years ago I went to the jungle and got ill. Very ill. So this is my podcast adventure to find more energy. It's packed with biohacking, science, health tech, supplements, and some of the most well-known experts on the planet.
This is something I spent 4 months of my life doing with electrodes glued to my head so that you can do a lifetime worth of meditation.
Decide what you don't give a f*** about, which is something you don't care about.
Some of it gets quite out there.
I had some stem cells sent up to my house that I had stored, and then I injected myself with mannitol.
And we even hack hangovers.
Alcohol is poisonous. So is water and oxygen in the wrong dosage.
So that's my podcast, Zestology. Live life with energy, vitality, and motivation. Today, boost your health and protect the planet. Hello, I'm Tony, confined to my spare room today rather than out and about because it's raining. That's what happens in November. It's also lockdown here in London. It's one of the great ironies, isn't it, that at the moment, the thing we need to do the most is boost our immune system, get our immune system in great shape just in case we need it to fight off coronavirus. But it's hard to do that when the gyms are shut and you can't get outside very much and it's the middle of winter and everything else. So all we can do is focus on that as much as possible on Zestology and get ourselves as healthy as possible. Laura Bond can help with that. She's an author and journalist and nutritional therapist with over 10 years experience. She's been in the Sunday Times and Tatler, the Mail on Sunday and Zestology a couple of times, and it is great to have Laura back. And one of the things that I love talking to Laura about is that the world has changed so much over the last kind of 100 years or so. We have so many chemicals in our environment contributing to skyrocketing rates of, it's hard to say that, isn't it, skyrocketing? Skyrocketing rates of asthma, allergies, anxiety, cancer and hormonal imbalance. And the good news is that small changes to your everyday lifestyle, like putting down the phone and plugging your feet into the earth, mitigating the effect that EMFs have on you, can make a dramatic difference to your long-term health. We are looking at health and immunity today on Zestology. On that theme, today's Zestology sponsor, today's Zestology partner is the Ultimate Immunity Protection Stack, which is simply awesome and I'm well into, and that is coming a little bit later on in the podcast. So listen out for that or head over to my website, tonywrighton.com, for a little bit more on that right now. But in the meantime, Laura Bond is an outstanding journalist, and here she is on Zestology. One of the reasons I was looking forward to chatting to you so much is because I think you're quite like me. I think the kind of things that you think about and worry about, I worry about as well. And I have to say, I've never forgotten the last time we met. I think we went to Dalesford Organic Cafe in Notting Hill, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we had a lovely brunch. And you told me this horrifying thing about receipts. And I've never forgotten it. Every time I handle a receipt now, I think of you. So thanks for that. What was it about receipt? There's something in the is it BPA in the receipts?
BPA, yeah. So they're dusted with BPA. So every time you pick up a receipt, you're absorbing it. I know it's one of those things that you just can't unknow. Once you know it, you can't really forget about it. So yeah, unless you make a big purchase, you don't need the receipts for your grocery shop. That's the takeaway point on that one.
No, yeah, I've never forgotten that. So I think there are a lot of similarities in the things that we think about and worry about. And I know that I've got a list of some of the things that you've been working on over the past few kind of months and years with your clients. Let's start by talking about organic food, which is, I mean, a lot of people who listen to this will get organic food already. And a lot of people will get some organic food, but not loads, because it's so expensive. And other people won't worry about it. I'm one of those people who, I mean, by and large, we get organic, but my goodness, our grocery bill is so expensive because of it. Remind me why I spend so much money on food.
Well, I mean, there's about 69% more antioxidants in organic food, and this has just been shown time and time again. That statistic there comes from a review of over 300 studies. So there's more antioxidants in the food, and that's because when you don't spray a plant with pesticides and chemicals, its own defense mechanism is activated to, ward off bugs and pests. And in activating its defense mechanism, it's producing more antioxidants, more of the good stuff. But also it's, what you're not getting in it. I mean, I read the other day that a third of British bread samples have glyphosate in it, which is that horrible Roundup chemical.
Oh dear.
Which,
yeah.
Glyphosate has been, huge. The World Health Organization labeled it a probable carcinogen. It does horrible things to your gut health. So I just think, buying organic wherever possible, however much your, wallet permit,
Yes.
whatever's affordable for you. The more organic you can get into your diet, the better.
It's just expensive, isn't it?
It is. I mean, sort of getting veg boxes and things can be a cheaper way of doing it. And obviously with meat, it's, choosing cheaper cuts of meat. So you're sort of getting oxtail or, beef chuck and making, using slow cooker recipes. So long and slow cooking of the cheaper cuts. Getting a whole roast chicken rather than just pieces of chicken. So then you're making a stock, which you can use as soup. You can use as sandwiches the next day. It might be that you eat organic meat, but eat slightly less of it and choose wisely.
Well, that is certainly one thing we do. We just eat less meat. We still have meat, but just less meat on the plate than before. And actually, I think I prefer it. When I get served a big lump of meat, I love meat, but when I get served a big lump of meat now, it's almost too much. It's the way that it's cooked and it's the flavours that it's cooked with, isn't it?
Exactly. I think in lockdown, probably a lot of us did a lot of experimenting with bean kind of recipes and quinoa and, a different sort of meze platters where you're like, what have we got left in the fridge? Let's have a bit of sauerkraut and a bit of this and a bit of that. And it's quite lovely. Yeah. And, nice to experiment with different recipes. So, I mean, those are the reasons for choosing organic food. But also it comes back to this idea that it's not just about what's healthy for us, but it's for the planet as well. When you use herbicides and pesticides, you're annihilating the sort of bacteria in the soil. The soil has its own microbiome. So if we want a sustainable planet, we've got to sort of think about not just our health, but the health of the planet, because, the air we breathe and the food we eat has a dramatic effect on our health.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about the clients that come and find you and you asking them perhaps to look at organic food. I suppose when a client comes to you, they are probably a little bit open to kind of change in the first place and kind of a little bit in this world. Otherwise, they wouldn't have actually sought you out in the first place. Is that right? Yeah,
that is by and large quite true. I mean, when clients, I'm always available for a free chat if people want to talk about whether they want to work with me. But then if we start going ahead, I'll give them a questionnaire and it has sort of how much time do you spend outside, what percentage of your diet's organic, how much time do you spend in front of a screen, blah, 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 blah. And, when we start talking, if that's not an area they want to discuss, that's fine. It's their appointment. They're paying me for what they want to get out of it. So I will, obviously cater to a client's needs and what their main goals are. But certainly if clients are open to looking at, reducing their exposure to things in the house, in their food, in their water, all those things, then I'm very passionate about helping them take small steps to do that.
Yeah. Do most people kind of embrace the organic? Because I think it's one of those ones where, there's a lot of things that on this podcast we cover, and actually it all is brilliant. But when you take each individual component, it's hard to say, oh, what, I'm going to eat organic and then everything's going to be fine and I'm going to get rid of my dodgy knee or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? So it might be a bit of a tough sell for people, especially when bearing in mind how expensive it is.
Yeah, well, I look at health as a 360 approach. Of course, organic food's not going to solve all your problems. And if you're in a really, I don't know, if you're not getting any sleep or you're in a really stressful job that you hate, then you're probably really not going to reach optimum health. So, it's important to consider everything that's sort of going on in your life. It's not just that, but it's just one of the things we'll look at. But also, when you were talking about BPA before and you're saying, oh, now every time I pick up a receipt, I'm worried about it.
I think of you, Laura.
I'm sorry to have left you with that one.
Yeah.
What I like sharing with clients is that, no one's going to eat organic 100% of the time, every day. No one's going to be able to avoid BPA all the time. It's everywhere. And so I like sharing, things you can do to help reduce your toxic load. So, for instance, Duke University found that leafy greens like spinach and kale can counteract the effects of damage done by BPA. Plenty of studies on kimchi, royal jelly, black tea. They've also been shown to reduce the damage from BPA. So, and sweating as well. There's plenty of studies showing sweating, jump in the sauna or go for a run. These things can also help the body excrete. So it's looking not just about what you're putting in, but how you can pull things out.
Yeah. It's such a lifestyle, isn't it? I mean, all of this stuff, really. We, as well as having a baby last year, we moved a house to a place with a garden. And, if you're not going to, you mentioned glyphosate before. If you're not going to use glyphosate, it's quite hard to get rid of weeds. And obviously, I'm not going to use glyphosate, so we've got a few weeds. And then we had a problem with foxes about a year ago. And they were all kind of living under our shed. Actually didn't really bother us that much, but the neighbour wasn't that happy about it. And it's not ideal, is it, having a load of foxes around? So if you want to get rid of foxes ethically, I can tell you, to my cost, it is very expensive.
Is it really?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to get rid of them non-ethically, you put down a load of pesticide, and then that'll be the way to get rid of them. But ethically involves, I don't know, spraying limoncello around or something like that. I can't quite work out. They put down what was almost like a cat flap for foxes under the shed. I mean, it was actually astonishing what they did, and they completely got rid of them humanely. But yeah, it just cost me. So all of this stuff, you just take a decision, don't you, what's important and what your values are, and I know that you think about this stuff as much as I do, really.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's not cheap. We've recently painted a bit of our house, and I didn't want all the VOC chemicals, so you bought a load of paint, but it was probably twice as expensive as ordinary paint. But you sort of think, oh well, we probably won't have to do that for another 10 years. And
yeah,
in my mind, for me, it's worth it. But everyone's different, and as I said, it's that I'm not prescriptive with clients at all.
No.
Like when we have a session, it's really, let's work out a plan together. Let's see what's going to be convenient and realistic for you. Let's make 1 or 2 changes today that we can work on, and then go from there. And I think, if people go away from a session and they do one thing differently, and they do one thing differently for a year, over the course of the year, that can make a dramatic difference to their health and their family's health.
What paint did you use then?
It's a company called Lakeland. They do completely non-toxic paint.
Great.
So,
yeah. These are the things we think about. How does it look now you painted it? Very nice, I imagine.
Yeah, really happy, and I can sleep soundly at night knowing that I'm not inhaling a whole load of chemicals. So happy days.
I know one of the other things you think about is sun cream, and I've spoken about this a few times before, actually. We know, and I would have thought most people who listen to Zestology know that, when you put stuff on your skin, it gets absorbed very quickly. And that's why often I'll just buy magnesium spray and spray it on my skin. But when it comes to sun cream, a lot of these sun creams have got some pretty heavy-duty nasties in them, haven't they?
Yeah, and I know we're going into winter now, so it's probably not high on people's agenda thinking about sun cream, but, it does come around. So there's something called oxybenzone that is one to look out for, to try and avoid. It's really bad for coral reefs, but it's also a hormone disruptor and really bad for us. We don't really want that on our skin. So if you're looking for a sunscreen, you really want one where the only active ingredient is zinc oxide. Yeah. And
it makes you look like a clown. Brilliant.
It is quite white. Got to say that. There are more and more designs coming out where it's less like a white zinc on your face.
Yeah.
But, I think if you're putting it on little sensitive skin, and that's the thing, Tony, with children, they're so much more vulnerable to toxins than we are. And there's several reasons for that. Children breathe more rapidly, so they breathe in more air. They ingest more food and more liquid per body weight than we do. They have smaller heads. So for things like mobile phones, the radiation goes much more directly into their skulls. And there are so many studies to prove that. So we do need to be a bit more thoughtful with them and the environment that they're surrounded by. and things like furniture with flame retardants. I just read, literally just read a study showing that flame retardants cause more damage to children's mental development than car fumes. But how many people know about that? When you're preparing for a baby, you're like, well, let's get the house sorted. Let's get a new sofa.
Yeah.
And then you're bouncing around on the sofa and all these flame retardant chemicals are just being pumped into the air.
And let's get a new car seat and let's get a new pram, which also have the same chemicals in them. I mean, the thing is, some people might listen to this and say, oh, you can't worry about everything. And you can't, but you make your choices in life, don't you? And there's certainly some of the things that I worried about.
And certainly, I noticed your brilliant post on your website. It's so handy for people. You should really flag that up somewhere on the bottom of this.
Oh, thank you. The one on baby products.
Yeah, it's really, it's very thorough. But if people can't afford the new eco, flame retardant free pram, just get a second-hand one, because by the time it's 2 years old or whatever, much less of a problem. So that's an area where it might end up costing less to do sort of the right thing in terms of protecting your child from chemicals. It's just getting a second-hand, pram, second-hand car seat, those second-hand sofa.
That's a great point. I mean, if I got would you buy a new sofa now?
We've had the same one for 10 years now, and I would definitely get a second. If we got a new sofa, I'd get a second-hand one. I mean, you could look into there are a few companies. In fact, there's a place in West London called Adventures in Furniture that does flame retardant-free materials and things. And before I had my child, I bought a nursing chair of that material. But I think once you've had a baby and you realise how much money you're going through.
I know.
So for now, to be honest, Tony's not high on my priority list.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, when you're specifically focusing about babies, although you could make the argument in any area of life, the eco-friendly pram that we bought, it was very expensive and it just didn't work that well. It was okay. It was quite nice. It looked nice, but it's not as good as a yo-yo. So, I think the other thing is with something like a pram, as long as you leave it somewhere where it can off gas and they're not sitting in there all the time, it's probably going to be okay. But again, you have to make all these decisions. And I always want to be kind of well informed and as healthy as possible. And it's a way of life, and I quite enjoy it. But I don't want to be obsessive about it.
Yeah, and it's very hard to find that balance when you are immersed in this kind of, you're reading this stuff all the time, you're reading this research. But I will say there's a lot you can do, diet wise, and things like bone broth is great for children. It was my son's first food when I started weaning him was bone broth. And that's for two reasons. It's that it helps seal their immature digestive tract, but it's also rich in glycine, which is really important for the detox pathways in the body. So having things like lots of organic bone broth in their diet, which, you've got a chicken carcass that, you've used for the roast dinner. You just, leave it on the pot, but most people are working from home at the moment, so it's easily done. Yeah. It doesn't really cost you much to do that, and it's so good for you. So things like bone broth can really offset the effects of some of these chemicals. Broccoli sprouts, it costs about £1.50 for a punnet.
I wanted to talk to you about broccoli sprouts, because we keep hearing about how amazing they are, and I've listened to a lot of Rhonda Patrick's stuff. I don't know if you've heard of her. But she's great, isn't she? Yeah. Now, broccoli sprouts is just about the best thing you can have. I mean, you could do the same kind of thing by taking a glutathione supplement, I suppose.
Yeah, except with small children, you sort of, you'd want to be careful with that.
Yeah.
It's better with small children to do the more natural. But yeah, sure, for adults. Absolutely.
So you actually will give your child broccoli sprouts on a salad, or?
There's no way he would eat them like that. And,
okay, right. Yeah.
He's good, but he's not that good. So from the time he was 8 months, I added them to a vegetable juice for him. So I put, carrots, beetroot, a bit of celery, small amount of broccoli sprouts. And there's some research from China that broccoli sprouts can offset the effects of airborne pollution. And what you would have heard from Rhonda Patrick, of course, is that they just really upregulate all the detox pathways. They're very anti-cancer, all those great things.
Yeah. Now, have you heard of Vegas juices?
No, I haven't.
They are someone, every once in a while, they send, full disclosure, they send me a little package in the post every once in a while, and they basically sell broccoli sprout juice.
Oh, really?
And they kind of make it cold pressed. They make it 100% raw. They don't heat it. They don't freeze it. And it's the real deal. I know it's the real deal because if I have a whole little mini bottle of it, I get quite a detox reaction. I can't really handle a whole bottle of it.
I'm noting this down. So
Vegus. Vegas or Vegas, yeah. And they're definitely on Instagram. Really nice guys who run it. They're really passionate about it, and they kind of acknowledge the problem, especially for adults. It's not that easy to grow broccoli sprouts, and a lot of us kind of really do want that healthiness in our lives because for all the reasons that it's great for.
That's brilliant. I'm writing that down. That's really, really good. I mean, the other, if it's busy and there's no time to do juicing, and also kids are fickle, aren't they? They go through food jags. They'll eat sauerkraut 1 minute and they won't touch it the next or whatever. So sometimes also if I'm making a smoothie, I'll give my son a small amount of smoothie, and in the smoothie I'll open up a broccoli sprout capsule.
Right, great.
So he'll get a little bit that way. And I mean, I also find, a small amount of smoothie is just such a great vehicle for whacking in the omega-3 oils for them and everything else.
Yeah.
That can be difficult to get children to have otherwise.
Great. I mean, sometimes when it comes to something like omega-3 oils or the Vegas juices, I worry that, I know it's kind of like, I don't want to give my son too much of it. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, you want to get the dosage right.
Yeah. And I mean, it's true. We definitely worry about that. And that's why I'm really glad I went back and did a lot more training, and specifically training with, practitioners that have worked with children for over 30 years, so that I really feel safe and supported when I'm working out doses for children. But I mean, if you're buying omega-3 from, a health shop, it will have a very safe, direct you to a very safe amount for children to take. And if you saw a functional medical practitioner, you were taking your son or daughter for, some condition, they'd probably recommend a lot more than what on the box says. So I think if you follow the guidelines on whatever product you're buying, you can't really go wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Are you thinking about writing another book then?
I would love to write another book, Tony. I think I would really love to do one focused on children and nutrition, and for mums as well, because, burnt out mothers, how you can get through that fourth trimester when you're dealing with a screaming child and you've got no free hands and you're feeling completely depleted. So yeah, a book that encompasses that and how to grow and raise a child in our modern day environment, and keep them as healthy as you can.
Yeah, I think that'd be absolutely brilliant, and I know from your writing style how good it'd be as well. It's just such a labour of love, isn't it? It takes such a long time, and I'd love to do another one as well, but it just takes so long, and it's a full-time occupation on its own, isn't it? But I suppose that is one area that you're focusing on a lot, and have you got a separate site now on children's nutrition as well?
Yeah, I do. It's Balance Baby. Online, people can find that, and it's got a lot of recipes for children. So balancebaby.co.uk.
Excellent. That's amazing. I'm interrupting this podcast for one moment because I've got something quite important to tell you. The father of modern medicine was Hippocrates, and I actually went to his birthplace recently. I went to Kos in Greece and went to a Hippocrates museum. It was amazing. I loved it. I thought, I've got to go since I'm into all this health stuff. And he said that all disease begins in your gut. And that is why it's so important, especially during these times, to protect yourself with a boosted immune system. If you drink coffee or tea or smoothies or really any beverage in the morning and you're looking for kind of a nice and tasty way to start your day and defend against harmful bacteria, I've got something for you. And if you're someone who likes to experiment a little bit and try new stuff, you will enjoy this. It is the Ultimate Immunity Protection Stack. And it's been put together by my friends at Bioptimizers, who are my podcast partners for today. And I think it's quite clever of them to do this because, let's be honest, the world isn't in a great place at the moment, and we are all thinking about immunity. So it has 3 products. This immunity stack contains over 18 natural herbs and probiotic blends, and it also contains loads of good stuff they call psychobiotics, which help you with your mood, performance, and cognitive function. So you can head to bioptimizers.com/zestology to find a little bit more about this immunity stack. I'm pleased with it. I think they've done a good job, and I'm really pleased that they're sponsoring this podcast as well. You can use the code Zestology10, okay? Zestology10 to save an extra 10% on the immunity protection stack. If you're in the UK, go to bioptimizers.co.uk. You won't find that deal or stack anywhere else. And this special deal is only until the end of November. So it's a kind of November special, really. Hope you enjoy it. Let me know how you feel. Time to make like Hippocrates and go and get the old immunity stack, okay? The ultimate immunity protection stack, bioptimizers.com/Zestology. Back to the show. So now listen, I need to ask you about the book and the tip. And we had a little chat about books beforehand. We were having a chat about Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep. And was that a book that you enjoyed?
Oh, I just thought it was revolutionary for me. I mean, as a mother that doesn't get much sleep, it was kind of horrifying reading all the facts.
Yeah.
But it also made me vigilant about protecting the sleep that is available to me that my son lets me have. So just getting to bed a bit earlier than I would do otherwise.
Well, that is the thing, isn't it? It ends up just being quite boring. You just have to go to bed very early. And we went on holiday with I tell you, we went on holiday with some family, and they couldn't believe that we were going to bed so early. It's like, look, mate, we'll be up at 6 o'clock in the morning. You won't. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we had the same thing with our in-laws when we go away. You know, they're at a different stage of life, aren't they? And they can happily sleep until 9 a.m. and you're like half the morning's gone.
Yeah.
So
are you involved with the blue blocking glasses and that kind of thing?
I just don't even look at my phone, past sort of 8. So I'm with my son every day from 3. So from 3 p.m. I barely look at it, and I'll have a quick last look after he's in bed. Yeah. And then I'm just too knackered, and there's other stuff to sort of get done.
That's great.
So my working day is very much earlier in the day anyway. But yeah, look, for me, coffee has a major effect, and I know everyone's different, but I really can't touch it if I want to get a good night's sleep.
Is that right?
That's been something
wow.
Yeah, I'm a very slow metabolizer of coffee, and which is good to know, because if he does give me a rough night's sleep and I've got an important work thing, then I will have it, but it's like a drug, and it really works like a drug, because when you don't have it very often, your body's very, very sensitive to it.
Right. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And you'll probably get a massive high from it. But
yeah. So I keep it there for when it's emergency situation. Yeah. But otherwise, it's just hazardous. And I think Matthew Walker really explains the effect so well in his book about how much coffee affects the ability. He talks about adenosine and things. But anyway, I know you've had him on your podcast, so I won't badly paraphrase his. Well,
I have got a little recommendation for you, though, because obviously he does talk about the effect of melatonin production in the evening, and again, this is the kind of thing that a lot of people might know already listening to this podcast. But if you look at very bright blue light, like something like on your phone or an iPad just before you go to sleep, your melatonin production just shuts off, and you want the kind of the calming red light of the fire, the campfire that humans looked at for millions of years before the invention of the light bulb. I recently found this company online that sells high temperature, heavy duty lighting gels for use in film and TV sets. And I think it's about £6 to buy like a massive sheet of this plastic red stuff. It's plastic, Laura, which you're not going to like, but you can put it over the lights and you've got a lovely red glow around your house in the evenings.
Can you do that, Tony?
Yeah, so our kitchen is like from 7 o'clock, it's just lovely and red. We've got Himalayan salt lamp and a couple of these red light gels, and the whole place is just like being around the campfire. It's lovely.
Wow, that's next level. That's cool. I love the the Himalayan. They're great. They're
lights. Lovely. Yeah. So that's my recommendation. But what book? Because that's not the book that you're recommending, is it?
Well, yeah, so the other one that I think is great, which I refer to again and again, I read it years ago and I'm constantly rereading it, is Woman Code by Elisa Vitti. It's the subline is perfect your cycle, amplify your fertility. So for female clients, I'm constantly going back because she has such great tips on how to eat certain foods during your cycle to boost your energy levels. So, the week before your period, your body has a huge demand for B vitamins and magnesium. And so if you eat lots of B vitamin rich foods and healthy carbohydrates, then you will have less a craving for sort of sweet things. If you're getting lots of magnesium, then less likely to get headaches and things. But it's a very well researched book, and she describes things in a very straightforward way. So I often recommend that book to clients if they come to me with hormonal issues, because it's just jam packed with tips.
That's brilliant. And as you know, I was talking about that with Angela Foster, and I'm definitely going to pass that on to my partner as well. I know she'd be fascinated, and that it just sounds exactly the kind of thing which would be a huge help for people, but not for me. Now, what about one tip for living with more energy and vitality?
Again, I know a lot of people talk about going outside, and I do think that's the best thing, but I won't labor on that. So something else that I routinely recommend to people is enzymes. So, they've been described as the missing link in our health. And so many people, when they come to me with gut issues, they're immediately asking me about a probiotic, but I recommend enzymes so much more than probiotics, because they can help with leaky gut. They help you digest your food. We aren't what we eat, we are what we absorb. And the older we get, the less enzymes we produce. But it's not even just digestion that they're good for. They're important for reducing the hardening of arteries. They can reduce the risk of cancer, because enzymes help break down the fibrin that surrounds cancer cells. So it does that, lets the immune system get in and do its work. And I find when I take them properly and I don't forget to take them, I do have more energy. There's less bloating, there's less of, you just have more energy throughout the day. And I know that you recommend Masszymes, and they're fantastic, Tony. I'll say this, I'm not affiliated with them in any way, shape or form, but I did take them years ago. I think I only stopped when I became pregnant. They are brilliant, and they're one of the only enzymes actually that I've taken where you really notice a difference immediately. You will take them and 20 minutes later your stomach's grumbling like it's starving, and like it's really ready to break down that food. That's
great. That's really good. Yeah, well, I obviously am affiliated with them, and they have intermittently sponsored this podcast. I think you can still use the code Zestology10 for 10% off. So thanks for mentioning them. But when with the enzymes, there are a couple of different ways of taking them, aren't there? You said that you would take it before food and your stomach could be grumbling for food. You can also take it with food, can't you?
Yeah, so for people, if it's a real strictly gut-related issue, sometimes it can help to take them with every meal. But for lots of other issues, if people even have some scar tissue build up or different things, take it away from food and let it work on, that scar tissue rather than working on just digesting the food that you're about to eat. It's the same goes if someone's wanting to take it for to help prevent cancer, or they've had it in the past and they want to prevent relapse. Enzymes, you want to take them on an empty stomach away.
Yeah, great. Okay, I'll try that out. Thank you for that, Laura. And look, it's so lovely to chat. You've got to go and what are you doing? Going swimming?
I'm going to take my child to a swimming lesson.
Oh, right, okay. So you're not swimming yourself. And I've got something similar coming up as well. We haven't even had a chance to talk about low EMF baby monitors, but this is an area that I spent a huge amount of time researching. And I literally feel like I've wasted a year of my life looking for baby monitors that have low EMFs. And then you just casually dropped into our email conversation one that looks far better than anything that I've got. Well, what is the one that you've got?
I came across it in the end, but yeah, Baby Move, the French brand. When a close friend of mine has a baby, that's my present. That's just my go-to present for a close friend or relative when they have a baby now. It's like, don't buy the monitor. I'm buying the monitor.
It's, all of this stuff is like that. That's so good. What a brilliant present. Yeah, we use one by Hartig and Helling, which is also good, and it operates on a kind of radio frequency rather than a Wi-Fi frequency. But I have to say, it's like using a monitor that was built in 1971. It's not exactly high tech.
Whatever works, as long as they're sleeping safely with the monitor on, and you can sleep soundly knowing that their head's not being exposed, to lots of radiation.
It's difficult actually, because now that it's come into winter, the heating is rather inconsistent in this old house, and what I'd really love to do is have one of those Hive kind of controllers in my son's room, so then it wouldn't get too hot or too cold. But of course, I don't want to do that because I don't want another or any Wi-Fi devices in his room. So instead, I spend half the night worrying that it's either too hot or too cold in his room, and it keeps me awake. But, you know, I mean, is that like, if I put it over the other side of the room, would that be all right or not, do you think?
I don't know. I'm not a technician, Tony. You might have to get one of those special EMF.
Yes.
One of those healthy house technicians to come to your home and come with a load of devices which will beep, beep, beep and tell you the right place to put it.
It's funny you say that, actually. I have been speaking to one, and I'm really hoping that she's going to come over with all her gear and test it all out. It's probably going to be horrifying, but we've been, for some reason, we haven't quite booked it in, but hopefully that will happen because it'd be great. Laura, it is so nice to talk to you again. Where can people find out everything that you are doing and both sites?
So Instagram's where I kind of put most of my things at the moment. So at Laura Bond. They can find me with recipes and tips and things or updates about workshops I'm doing. Otherwise, on my website, laura-bond.com, which is linked to my other Balance Baby one. So, yeah, any of those avenues. And people are very welcome to drop me a message if they're interested in a health session. I'd love to hear from them.
Thank you to Laura, and thank you for listening as well. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would be absolutely delighted if you shared it on Instagram or somewhere else. But if you do it on Instagram, I will repost it. How about that? I mean, not particularly exciting, but I will, and I'd love to hear from you if you enjoyed it as well. Laura, brilliant. And next week, a couple of small but exciting things planned for episode 300. Nothing major, but a couple of small treats. Just time to mention today's awesome podcast partner, and that is the amazing Ultimate Immunity Protection Stack. This stack includes the rather wonderfully titled Psychobiotics, which help A, increase serotonin, and B, increase happy chemicals to naturally elevate your mood, performance, and cognitive function with no side effects or dependencies. I've had messages from quite a few people saying that the Ultimate Immunity Protection Stack isn't available in the UK, and happily I have a workaround for you because the UK site has all the individual products, including Cognibiotics, all available with a 10% discount if you use the code Zestology10. So if you're in the UK, go to bioptimizers.co.uk and use the code Zestology10. If you're anywhere else in the world, you can go to bioptimizers.com/Zestology. bioptimizers.com/Zestology. And if you're intrigued or interested by psychobiotics, and you should be, because they're exciting. Every product partner, every partner that I have on Zestology, I'm into, and I use, and I try out. And all the Bioptimizers products just kind of totally fit the bill. I'm so pleased that they are a partner of Zestology. And if you head to bioptimizers.com/Zestology, you'll see a couple of very unattractive pictures of me and much more information about psychobiotics. And do let me know how you get on with them as well. I'd love to hear from you. That's pretty much it. It's been an exhausting few weeks, hasn't it? The American elections, the latest on COVID. There's so much going on all over the world, and it is often stressful as well. And I really do think we need these immune boosters. We need to think about our immune system with supplements, lifestyle hacks, the kind of stuff that Laura's been talking about. I think it's all important, and I desperately think it's important to switch off as well. So that is what I'm going to do now. Thank you for listening. I'll see you for episode 300. Wow, can't believe it, of Zestology next week. See you then.